So, hi guys, welcome to episode 3 of Sigmund's Juxtaposition.
Yes, so this episode is a very interesting, can also be a controversial episode.
Yeah.
So we're going to discuss about how people glorify serial killers.
I think serial killers and also other controversial figures, if you will, to a certain extent. So, yeah, do you want to start off?
Sure, so the very obvious thing that is happening now is everybody is getting to know more about the serial killers that have been around for a long time. So it's more to um, it's attributed mostly to the media portraying them and covering them, taking documentaries or feature films or like just for
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
covering these topics, and it's 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 a very commercially viable thing to do because a lot of people like the horror, like sitting through that thrill.
Like the thrill of it, yeah.
Yeah, that morbidity that it gets. I understand that's why people like watching serial killer movies or even seeing the documentaries.
Is
So
that how you came to know of this thing?
yeah,
Like intrigued by it, I guess?
actually, like we're students of psychology, so we have case studies in our textbooks of these serial killers. So that's how I got to know the very popular names, like Ted Bundy, Dahmer, Dahmer, Dahmer,
Dahmer.
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 Okay.
Dahmer.
So yeah, these people
Yeah.
were case studies for us, not
Yeah.
things that we were driven to. We just studied them to study about antisocial
I
personality. Yeah,
yeah. Like antisocial personality and psychopathy
psychopath.
were like two very major topics that we studied in our final year. But I think for me, I was kind of exposed to it through the media, like you said. I think like how they make TV shows about serial killers or like just people who commit crimes like Dexter and Hannibal Lecter and all. I think
Mm.
that was my initial exposure. But I think what specifically speaking to this topic, like why I wanted to talk about it was like I watch a lot of uh, YouTubers who talk about controversial content like this. And I think I came across YouTube videos by a couple creators where they were talking about this side of Tumblr, right? So Tumblr, like the app, the website, where she called it the true crime side of Tumblr. So I was like, okay, just a place where they discuss true crime. It's harmless. People like to, I mean, for the most part, we assume it to be harmless. People just talk about, cold cases or all that. But I was completely wrong because apparently the true crime side of Tumblr is just filled with people who romanticize and glorify serial killers and like school shooters and everything. I think the most famous ones are the Columbine school shooters, who were these two kids, I think back in the 90s. They went on a school shooting spree and people were like, that I guess is more understandable in the sense because the people who fantasized about them or like sexualized them or whatever, they empathize with them because they're like, oh, they were bullied, they were driven to do that, so it's not their fault and all of that. But there's the other side, which is just where they're like, oh, Ted Bundy was convicted, but he didn't actually do those killings, or where they romanticize Jeffrey Dahmer and all of those things. We'll talk about the reasons as to why people tend to do those things, but yeah, this is what kind of drove me to learn more on this topic.
Yeah, when you pointed out that they were sympathizing with them because they had a hard childhood, the same thing happened with Dahmer. So there was a movie that was created on his life and the gruesome murders that he's done. Um, so there were like scenes in the movie where he was shown to be bullied in his school. He's normalized by showing him as a person with very few friends, talking normally with peers, and all that. So I have a feeling like when such scenes are used to like elicit empathy, sympathy from people is just, it's just not right. It doesn't justify their actions in any ways. There are a lot of people who get bullied, who have a lot of mental health issues, but they do not go
Exactly.
to
Go
that
ahead and do
extent.
those things. But
Exactly.
yeah, in that aspect, what they do is obviously wrong. But and I think this is kind of controversial because many people are like, oh, serial killers are drove to do what they do. They're not monsters at birth. Obviously, no one is born bad, but some people do have a higher tendency. In the case of personality disorders, where it's personality disorders aren't something that you just have, like that you just get. It's something you have, and something
Yeah.
triggers that disorder. So I don't think, obviously, showing them, like humanizing them like that is a good thing when you're trying to bring awareness to the fact that they did all these bad stuff.
Exactly.
So yeah, like you pointed out, that isn't right to elicit empathy, and it kind of worked. Like when Ted Bundy's movie came, not Ted Bundy's movie, but the movie about him,
Mm-hmm.
starring Zac
Yeah.
Efron, people were like, "Oh my God, Ted Bundy is actually hot." Like people who went on Twitter and everything, and like
Exactly.
yeah, and it was just, and like in the movie they showed him having a girlfriend and like having a love affair, and while he was in prison, like they showed him actually like empathizing with the girlfriend, having a family and everything. Like yeah, that part of his life existed, but I think when you sensationalize that aspect of his life, his actions kind of become detached of
Exactly.
what he is, which is why people kind of like forget um the impact of whatever they did. Like those victims and their victims' families still exist and they still like mourn. So kind of
True.
not great.
Yeah, okay. Just checked. We have one person watching us. To whoever that is, hi. Uh, okay. So the thing is, yeah, I would like to add on to like the point where you said, why are you casting a very good-looking A-lister who is known for his charm, who's known to get the attention of especially women, as a serial killer? It's just not doing the right thing. Because okay, I'm not saying cast a person who's
Like not conventionally
relegated.
attractive.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, not the society's convention of attractive. That's the problem over here. It's just that he's already known for his roles that he plays, and he's very charming. Okay, so I'm not
Yeah.
saying don't go by the societal laws of attraction. It's just that, just um like I really cannot put this into words, but it's just that don't cast an A-lister who is extremely charming to portray a serial killer, because you will ultimately send the wrong message out to the society. Because
Exactly.
yeah.
Like, I think the most notable one I can remember is Zac Efron.
Yeah.
There are some other movies, but I can't remember the names of the actors. But they were, the conventionally attractive. I think, like exactly like you said, Zac Efron is known for acting in movies like High School Musical and 17 Again, where he's
Yes.
seen as a teen heartthrob, and
Baywatch.
then you take him, put him in a serial killer movie. It's like casting Tom Holland to like play, I don't know, like a serial killer. That's just
Exactly.
not right. When you know the demographic of audience that they have, it sends the completely wrong message.
Exactly, because when you, why do we keep watching the movies of some particular actor? It's because you've emotionally convinced yourself that this guy is amazing, this guy is good,
Yeah,
and I want to watch any movie that he does. So it's just it's very very wrong to do that in our opinion. So, and another thing is that the person does not deserve this kind of publicity. Okay, when we looked at the Ted Bundy, what's that called? Yeah, Conversations with a Killer. It's the Netflix documentary. They are clips from the court hearings of Ted Bundy himself. I totally agree with that, because you see the man for who he is, you actually observe his character, and it's a very good documentary. But making a like a commercial movie out of it, I don't think that's a good idea, especially with the casting issues. So I have a feeling like it'll it'll probably fulfill the goal that the serial killer wanted, to be known to
Yeah,
people. Okay.
exactly. And like, did I just pause?
No,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. Yeah, you went vertical and then you came back. Then it's fine.
Okay. Yeah. I'll continue from here.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like the documentary was exceptionally good, and the movie was nice too. If it was just a story and not based on a real life event,
Mm.
because the documentary, see, it focused on like all the horrible things he did. Like he got convicted, he escaped, and then he went ahead and killed more people even after he was arrested. Like they focused on the victims, they focused on the perspective of his girlfriend, but the movie was just like about him doing very humanly
Mm.
things, and the movie was nice. I enjoyed watching it, but it just didn't sit right with me
True.
because again they just sensationalized him, not like showed his bad side or gave any justice to the victims.
Mm.
So yeah, I think
Yeah. Okay. So can we discuss about how we think it could be done better? One, I think documentaries over commercial films. What do you say?
exactly, yeah, documentaries are better most of the time. I mean, like, I guess the major platform we all consume these documentaries is from Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
and they do a good job of, like, getting the evidence. They bring people in who were involved with the case. They talk about the victims,
Oh
if
yeah.
they're surviving, all of that. So I think, yeah, that's
What's
definitely.
the
I don't
documentary?
think, yeah,
Sorry, sorry. Go on. I'll tell after this.
no, no, I don't think in any case there should be a movie which is made
Mm.
about a serial killer. You can talk about the crimes he did, but not about the serial killer. Like,
Mm.
don't talk about his life in such a human way.
Yeah.
That's just,
Totally, totally agree
yeah.
with you on that. What is the documentary that we both watched recently on Netflix? It's on Trump's friend who's a pedophile.
Oh, Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was really good. So it
Yeah.
had the victims who came and talked like at the present moment, and also like court hearings and a few clips from here and there from the news, from his interviews and all that. So yeah, like I really feel like documentaries are one thing. Do you think anything else can be done to like make media portray serial killers in a better way, apart from documentaries?
I don't think media should, like, just, okay, talking about what comes to mind for me is like in the 70s and 80s when the serial killing or whatever was like on the rise, because it was something new, the media was just sensationalizing it. Like, it
Mm.
was hot
Mm-hmm.
news. It was like, oh my god, all these different murders being done by the same guy, even though it's in different states. It
Mm.
was something new. People didn't understand it, so they wanted to pay more attention to it. So obviously, the media fed into it. I definitely think it's died down now.
Mm.
But when I think there's just, I can't think of a better way than just documentaries. Like, you shouldn't portray a serial killer. You should
Okay.
portray the crimes. You should bring justice, or
Should talk to the
to
victims.
yeah, the victim story should be heard rather than the serial killers. He should be, not humanized because
Yeah,
obviously, yeah.
meaning as rightly it should be, because I don't think we can justify his actions with any amount of traumatic history, because a lot of people undergo trauma but do not succumb to such actions. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, obviously, these people can plead insanity, right? And the thing is, yeah, it is kind of sad that these people had to be, these people were triggered to get that personality disorder or whatever,
Mm.
disorder that made them do those things. Yes, that is sad, but that doesn't justify the horrible things they did. So, yeah, I don't think it's right to humanize them because there's no proper treatment for these sort of things. You can't
Mhm.
give a serial killer rehab or medicine or therapy. Like, those things are not going to work. So, yeah, I just think you should put them in a place where they just can't hurt other people. That's it. That's all
Yeah.
you can do. You can't give them attention because attention is what most of them want. You
Mm-hmm.
can't give them, interviews and all of those things. Like Ted Bundy fed off on the
Yes. Yeah.
media
Yeah.
wanting to know more about him, and he convinced all those women oh, I want to come, I'm so intrigued by him. He's so handsome, he's so charming, he's so well spoken. There's no way he could do this. They came to see him at his trial. He got love letters
Yeah.
from his fans.
Mm-hmm.
So, you should not give them the attention because that's clearly what they're asking for.
Exactly. Okay, so having talked about this, let's go to some little bit of statistics that
Oh,
has been found out about the representation of the serial killers in terms of gender and ethnicity. Um, so when we see, okay, so what are all the serial killers that we know of? Mostly white, right? White males.
yeah.
So, so the misrepresentation and when the actual data was got, um, it was found out that over all the decades when this US data analysis was conducted, it's probably, yeah, till 2016 they have data. So till then, when they did the data analysis, it showed that the number of male serial killers is 90.8, which is fine. At least we are seeing it's a little obvious, and we've seen it in a lot of serial killer movies. It's all about the males, fine. But the problem is the number of white serial killers. It's only 52.5%. In contrast to the misconception that almost all, like 80 to 90%, is
I think the conception that most serial killers are white comes from the fact that most serial killers are American,
yeah,
right?
because
Like that's where it all kind of like started. But even if you take American serial killers, I mean, like off the top of my head, Richard Ramirez, I don't think he was white, but he was a serial killer.
yes,
But yeah, there were lots in Europe too. But I mean, I guess
But
they're
yeah,
also white.
like-
But yeah, that statistic like puts me off because I also thought
Hmm.
that most serial killers were white.
Male and white, right? So yeah, so when we see another startling fact, mid to late 20s is only 26.7%. So we have learned this in psychopathy that like after like 40, the drive for the psychopathic individual reduces.
Yeah.
We've seen that,
yeah,
right? We've
exactly.
studied about how they don't have the drive to do their manipulative behaviors after a certain point. But this
Yeah.
statistic is really like startling because the number of mid to late 20 is serial killers is only 26.7%. So another thing,
That
yeah, go on.
no, I mean that just got me to thinking. That means that most of them would have ASPD or some other sort of personality. Oh, I should probably ASPD is antisocial personality disorder.
Yeah.
Most of them might have that or some other type of personality disorder, which is great.
Yeah, no, but we're just talking about age now. Like the mostly the misconception is they're very young, they're very bloodthirsty,
Yeah.
they're very driven in life, sexual energy is very high and all that. But yeah, the statistics don't say so. And another thing is white males only 45%. White male mid to late 20s only a startling 12.2%. White male and mid to late
Wow.
20s. So which is like very very contradictory to what the society believes in because
Yeah.
of media. Because we've only seen movies that portray white males as serial killers, right?
Yeah, not just movies, like even the most famous serial killer cases you take, like
Mhm.
BTK Raider, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy,
Oh,
all of them, like Charles Manson, all of them are white males. Okay, maybe not all of them are in their 20s, but most of them are in their late 30s to 40s. Like none of them
Mhm.
are older than that, or at least they didn't do the crimes that when they were that old. They did it
Yeah.
when they were quite young.
So this is something that
Yeah, that's. I think
surprised
maybe
me.
this. I don't understand where the statistic can come from because you can't take it. You can't take into account from cold cases or anything like that. Only convicted people, right?
Yeah. Maybe they took it from cold cases. I don't know. I didn't see much about the population that they studied, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you take it from cold cases, I mean, you don't have a convicted person who you can count as the
Yeah,
subject.
maybe. Yeah, I don't think that's concrete evidence either. So yeah, maybe only convicted cases.
Wow, that is actually like startling. I was
Mhm.
not expecting that. Again, it's just a misconception then, another misconception amongst the public because of media. Yeah, so I think the next thing that I personally want to talk about a lot is obviously with the media doing all of this, you notice, I don't know if it's as prevalent as it is for me. A lot of people are genuine fans or are obsessed with these serial killers. Like how a
Mhm.
person might be a fan of a singer or an
Mhm.
actress or an actor or any other media personality. Um, there are a lot of people, especially mostly women, who are also like fans of these serial killers and murderers or cult leaders or whatever.
Mm.
And again, the major way I got to know about this was through like these YouTubers who were talking about this phenomenon on Tumblr or like
Mhm.
on Twitter, where all these people, defended these school shooters and serial killers. And I was genuinely baffled. So when I was looking into it, this is apparently um, again, as I said, this is mostly among women, right? It's women who are feeling this sexual
Mm.
attraction to men who commit crimes. And this is apparently a paraphilia called hybristophilia.
Wow. Okay.
Now, yeah, so a general thing about paraphilia is that
Mm. Yeah.
paraphilia is basically a disorder, a sexual mental disorder, if you will, where a person has a very strong sexual urge towards a very atypical object.
Yeah. Any
Normal, yeah,
abnormal, deviant sexual behavior.
yeah. So mostly any kind of fetishes or kinks would come
Mhm.
under this definition, but it's only considered a paraphilia if it goes so far as to cause a person distress or cause another person distress. So if a person has like a foot fetish and they act on it and the partner is okay with it, they're okay with it, that's not a paraphilia. Just
Yes.
it should cause the person distress and it's an abnormal attraction,
Yeah.
abnormal sexual attraction. Right now, the thing about this is that when you learn about paraphilias, people say it's mostly only in males.
Yeah.
Like
Mostly.
like most of the time, it's only in males because they're the only ones who have these deviant sexual attractions. Like, just think of like when you take people who commit rape or people who commit exhibitionist, voyeuristic acts, it's men. You don't see a lot of women who go around in public
Yeah.
flashing
We
or
can't
anything like that. So, yeah,
neglect the presence of women in this deviant
yeah.
behavior, but most,
Mostly, like
yeah.
majority of them
Mhm.
are known to be male.
Yeah, I also
But the
want to add
thing,
one thing. I'm so sorry
yeah,
to cut you off,
no,
but
no,
for
no, go ahead.
people to like understand paraphilia clearly and not mistake it for a societal deviance or something,
Yeah.
it's a deviance where you are affected by it. A person's mental health is affected by it, and as she said, if you have some fetishes, you the person who has paraphilias, there are a lot of types, just not fetishes, so will not be able to acquire like sexual satisfaction in the absence of that
Yeah,
situation or
very
phenomena.
important.
So
Yeah,
that is a very
yeah,
characteristic feature of paraphilia, so you don't have to like mistake it with the
yeah,
societal standards of deviance. Yeah, okay, continue.
yeah, exactly. Like to just add on to what she said, like if a person is into BDSM, if they do it in a consensual way, it's not a paraphilia. But if they take it so far as to hurt the other person and they only get, the sexual satisfaction by hurting the other person so much so that they're hurt, then that is a paraphilia. Now,
Yeah.
I found this interesting that, again, as I said, most paraphilia comes in men. This is something that very typically comes only in females.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
at least as far as everything I've read, that's what it seems like because it's mostly these women who feel this strong sexual arousal towards partners who do, killing, murder, robbery.
Hmm.
So take the typical bad boy archetype, like the good girl likes the bad boy, but just
Oh my
elevate it to
god.
like 1,000 and you get this,
Oh
right?
my god. Hmm.
So this is also apparently called as the Bonnie and Clyde syndrome.
Oh, okay.
So for anyone who's interested, you can go read up on it. There's lots of articles. It's pretty interesting. So there's so much information.
Mm-hmm.
But most of them are alleged. I mean, they are told by experts as to why people might be attracted sexually towards these serial killers or cult leaders. But there's no solid evidence as to, like, there's nothing that points to one particular thing saying that this is what causes them, because there's not much empirical evidence. There's no research that's been done on this, because no one's gonna
Yeah.
come forward and be like, yeah, all of this. So this is not as common as people think it is. Again, this is just something I stumbled upon when I was watching YouTube videos the other day, and I was really interested because it's like, I assumed they were kids, right? Like the 13, 14-year-olds
Yeah.
who thought, oh, these guys look hot, so I don't care if they kill people.
Yeah.
But this is more than that. So, like, even when we talk about Ted Bundy's,
Mm-hmm.
the documentary on Netflix, if you see the documentary, you'd see a part where during his final few hearings, there were lots of women who came forward saying, like, oh, he's so charming, he's so handsome. I wanted to see him in person. So people like Ted Bundy and Richard Ramirez, Charles Manson, Jeffrey Dahmer, all of these people were like, so many women were enamored by them that they got love letters when
Yeah.
they were in
Yeah.
jail.
Mm-hmm.
So for us to go, like, Richard Ramirez and Charles Manson and Ted Bundy also, I think they got married when they were in prison.
Yeah.
Two women who were their fans, or who were like
Yeah.
obsessed with them. So there are lots of people who come forward and tell there are various reasons as to why women are attracted. So first, as I talked about, is hybristophilia, which is actually a mental condition.
Mm-hmm.
You can overcome it, I think, if it's not very severe. But yeah, that is one reason. Another reason that was given by people is that, again, the whole like type of good girl is attracted to the bad boy, but again, you multiply that to like the worst extreme, you get this. And there's also another thing that they said where women tend to be attracted to deviants, like coming off on that point about the bad boys.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to be attracted to deviants where I think there's a specific neurotransmitter, the norepinephrine, that gets released in the brain. So they
Okay.
automatically think, they like associate norepinephrine, which is pleasure hormone, to the
Norepinephrine is adrenaline as a
yeah
neurotransmitter, right? Mm-hmm.
adrenaline, yes, as a neurotransmitter, yes. So they associate that neurotransmitter to the deviants, and it makes them feel attracted to those people. So that's one. And another very common theme that's seen, like, even if you take any cheesy romance book out there, it's this thing where, like, I don't care if he's bad, I can change him, he won't do those
Yeah.
bad things
Oh
to
my
me.
god. Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
sort of the emotional, it makes you want to feel wanted. Like,
Yeah.
I can, yeah,
Yeah, like
exactly.
I want to add to that. Like I want to add to the previous point as well, but I'll just first start with this. The thing is, women have an innate nature in them to think of themselves as changers.
Yeah.
They thrive on nurturing people and thinking that they can modify their behavior somehow. But yeah, it's not a very adaptive or a helpful feature, because most of the relationships, it's not going to go well. You're going to intrude their private space, even though the person is not like involving themselves in criminal or deviant behavior. Even in like normal relationships, women go into it thinking that, oh yeah, I can change him. It's very common. I'm not saying it's a thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just like a
yeah.
natural instinct for them, I think, for us.
Yeah, yeah. Elaborating on that, I think that's why many women tend to get into bad relationships.
Yeah, yeah,
And the reason why they end up staying, even if they know that it's bad, is like, okay, later on, even though they realize they're bad, they're kind of in a very sticky situation where they're probably being gaslighted or anything. But I think that's the thing. Even if they know that someone is inherently bad,
Mhm.
now we're not claiming that women are like this, because obviously now
Yeah.
we're more independent and all of that. But we're saying that it's a very primitive thing,
Yeah.
right? It's a very primitive nature that all women have.
Yeah.
So it can't like completely go away. Obviously, we all evolve, but it's like a trait that we all have, right? So yeah, that's completely true. And the feeling that she or he can change him, and that, I think this mostly comes from the fact, like, they think they're just misunderstood. They like feel empathy for how
Mm.
they were
Yeah.
treated, or how they were
Yeah.
bullied, or how they were raised. They're like, no, he was just mistreated. You all are misunderstanding him. I
Yeah.
can change
Yeah.
him. I can
Yeah.
like bring out his good side or
Yeah.
whatever. Another thing that many people noted was that some of these people just want attention. Like, if
True.
you take a very sensationalized person like this, like if you go and tell someone, oh yeah, I have a crush on a serial killer, obviously people are going to look at you like, huh, what?
Mhm.
It gives them the sort of attention and that fame they're looking for.
Yeah.
um Another thing is that another common factor I think someone noted was that most of these women who were attracted, not all cases obviously, most of these women who tend to be attracted to them were abused in some
Okay.
way or the other during
Okay.
the childhood, and they have some sort of mental instability.
Okay.
Again, these don't show them like these women are mad or crazy. It's just, it's something that's inherent, and it's being shown as they're being attracted to these people.
Okay.
Like, their mental instability is being portrayed when they're attracted to these people. Like a sort of, I keep forgetting the word for it, like a very bad coping mechanism, I guess.
Okay. Okay. I understand where you're going with this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so something like that. And another thing is, like, the person may like feel special.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Like the attention they're getting from the
yeah, the
people.
attention they get, and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this
Unique.
person is a bad person and they rely on me for their
Mm-hmm.
good qualities. Like, they rely
Uh-huh.
on me. Um, that sort of thing could also be a thing. And another interesting thing was that an evolutionary psychologist apparently said that during the primitive times, women
Okay.
tended to be more attracted to males of their species who tended to be more aggressive, loud, and powerful, who were the
Oh,
alpha
okay.
males.
Okay.
Because in those primitive times, it showed that the more aggressive a male is, it's like the more they can protect, and the more they can
Exactly.
fight off predators.
Yes.
So that is kind of being associated to this here.
That's an amazing
So
perspective. Yeah.
yeah, so that's why even now when you take like very, I mean, I tend to see a lot of very bad cheesy romance novels where it's like the girls are attracted to the alpha male.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a very primitive old concept. It shows no sort of maturity in men. But yeah, it's the primitive kind of it's the underlying primitive nature that makes these women be attracted to these people who do very devious crimes.
It's very true to like look at it that way because the whole concept of heroism in films is based on that, right? A
Exactly.
male who can fight, who is violent, who can stand for things for her and for himself, protective and all that. So yes, it's a very
Yeah.
evolutionary, it's innate in a person to like choose the alpha male because that's what we've been doing. If you need to survive in a forest, you need to catch hold of the strongest man.
Exactly. It was always like the hunters and the gatherers.
Uh-huh.
So obviously, it's like we relied on that sort of power dynamic,
Mhm.
like to be safe. But obviously, that's not the case now. But again, they're saying that since this is such a primitive thing that's been there, that might be a reason. And another very common thing that you'd see most people, I think they would explain it themselves, is just a fascination they have. They're like, oh,
Mhm.
why did they do this? I want to understand why they do those things. I want to try to understand and empathize with them. That could also be a thing as to why they want to get close with them. And another thing from the point of the serial killer is that, specifically with serial killers or people who commit all these crimes, if they tend to have personality disorders like psychopathy, they tend to be very smart, well spoken,
Exactly.
charming,
Yeah.
so much so that they appear as a very well adjusted social person.
Yeah.
But in reality, they aren't. They just
Yeah.
use it as a sort of manipulative behavior to lure all these people in. So many women can also fall victim to that.
Yeah, like elaborating on that, so I'll just give you like a brief introduction to what psychopathy is and how it's different
Yeah,
from antisocial personality
sure,
disorder.
personality disorder.
So, antisocial personality disorder, you will be manipulative, you will lack remorse, you will be deviant in all ways possible. But the difference between antisocial personality disorder and psychopathy, which also has the same features, is that in psychopathy, the person is so unempathetic. It's just mind blowing. And the other thing is, the person will seem very very normally adjusted to the society. You
Exactly.
cannot differentiate a person with psychopathy and a normal human being. So much so that Ted Bundy got his law degree, he got married, he was in a stable marriage for like a few years before he started committing these crimes, and the wife had no clue.
Yeah, and he also they let him defend himself in a court of law.
Exactly. Thinking that he's normal. So that's the problem with psychopathy. The person is ultra charming, ultra normal.
Yeah,
You cannot identify them apart from a normally functioning human being.
exactly. And I think when you take a person with antisocial personality disorder, you can clearly see, at least to a certain extent, because that's when, they say that you'll know a serial killer, like how a guy becomes a serial killer, because they would like kill very small animals when they were a child, or they would be,
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah, yeah.
deviant, they would bully a lot of people. All of those things, those are very evident in antisocial personality disorder.
Mhm.
They would very clearly show that they don't want to
Yeah.
fit into society,
They
they
lack
don't
the
want to
social
please
skills.
people.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the difference with psychopathy. And a very interesting point that I noted when we were being taught about this was that I think it's very difficult to differentiate the two when you're diagnosing a person.
True.
So if you misdiagnose a person with psychopathy as someone who has ASPD or antisocial personality disorder, usually the treatment for people with
Mhm.
ASPD is
Good point.
rehab therapy, where they teach them social skills,
Mhm.
they teach them etiquette, social cues, and all of that. If you misdiagnose a person with psychopathy and you send them to rehab, where the psychopath is being taught social cues, you're just arming the person with more information as to be more well adjusted in society. So much so that people will never be able to
Yeah.
realize that they're a psychopath.
So
That was like really interesting when we were learning about that.
yeah, that's a very very interesting thing. It's just so
Yeah.
it's so like it's so fascinating. Like a person who's so deviant and who has so many bad intentions is so well adjusted in society that you cannot take him apart. And even if you find that he's doing deviant behavior and do not diagnose him as psychopathy and you give him social skills training, you're just making the matter 100 times worse. And it's
Worse,
because of
exactly.
ignorance, because not a lot of people are equipped with this psychological knowledge. So yeah, it's very very
Yeah.
possible.
And I think another sort of misconception with people with psychopathy is that everyone thinks like, oh, psychopath means he goes around killing people and he's like bad. That may not entirely be the case, because I think a while back I read like on Reddit or somewhere on the internet that most of the psychopaths aren't like cruel people who want to go around harming
Mm-hmm.
others.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't feel emotions. Like even if their own mother dies, they just
Yeah.
can't cry at the funeral. They're like, okay, well, she's dead. They don't really have bad intentions. They just kind of have to learn, or they end up learning in some way to adjust in society. But I don't think there's like that, like all of them are these terrible, cruel people who harm others. Yes,
Yeah.
most of them are more prone to feeling that way, but I don't think all of them are.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you've actually shown me the threads where the people who have been diagnosed with psychopathy have written about their own experiences of
Oh,
not feeling things like doing extreme crime, but they just don't feel anything. They lack remorse and all that. Actually, I have something just popped up in my mind while you were explaining about norepinephrine, right? So that is like the fight or flight hormone that makes you pumped up for something, right? So I was just thinking, and also like coordinating that with the archetype of good girl, bad guy. Maybe it's like the thrill of the vicarious
Yeah, yeah,
experience of you are doing some crimes that I've never had the guts to do, or the thrill that I get by listening to your stories is so much so that I encourage you to do it, or at least I associate with you. Something like that. I don't know. It's just a thought
yeah,
that
yeah.
came. I'm
I
not
think
sure about this.
now that you explain, I think I gave the wrong information. I said something about pleasure, or something. Yeah, it's not that. When
Okay.
norepinephrine gets released, it is the fight or flight, right? So it's the thrill of being attracted to someone who's doing deviant stuff, who's doing deviant things. It's not the pleasure. I think I was wrong there, so I just want to correct that. You're right.
Okay.
It's not the pleasure hormone or pleasure neurotransmitter or anything. It's a fight or
Yeah,
flight.
maybe.
Yeah, it's just the adrenaline that's
Yeah,
doing the
something.
thing.
We discussed this point while we were talking about why extreme vlogs like David Dobrik's, where he is
Oh
literally, yeah,
yeah.
where he's literally doing extreme stuff, or like stunts that people binge on
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah, yeah.
The reason why such videos are getting so popular is probably because of vicarious experiencing. Like, I'm not able to do it in real life, but get a lot of pleasure seeing you do it, or seeing
Yeah.
people do it. So,
True, true, true. There are just some people who have a higher threshold
oh my
and they
god.
need that sort of experience or that sort of.
Yeah,
I think this can also be a factor in sexually deviant behavior.
yeah.
So
Maybe it's also a factor of because of glorifying serial killers. Maybe a person is not able to do it, and he sees such deviant crimes being committed, and watching that gives them a lot of pleasure. So maybe.
yeah, exactly. That could also be a thing. That's interesting. Um, Another thing I noted was like when you take this paraphilia that I talked about,
Hmm?
it's not just for serial killers, but just anyone who does any
Right?
sort of deviant crime. Another fact to note is like cult leaders. When people are
Okay.
obsessed with cult leaders like Charles Manson, I think that's different in a case because the person is directly in contact with the cult leader, and a cult leader is usually someone who's very persuasive, manipulative, they're charming, they tend to overpower a crowd. So in that case, that sort of obsession or romantic attraction is different than when a person is being attracted to someone who's behind bars in a jail.
Hmm.
So that was also something interesting that I noted. But yeah, that also kind of comes under this umbrella. So I
True.
just wanted to mention that.
So yeah, we've talked a lot, and we have 2 more minutes to 45. So it's been.
ஏதாவது சொல்லணுமா?
Yeah, we can summarize this by just saying like we've covered a lot about how the factors that are associated with people, especially women, romanticizing and glorifying serial killers. We've seen how media has
Media
influenced
does it.
the glorification of serial killers. And we've seen some statistics, we've seen some psychology based on that, we've seen paraphilia, we've seen how they're emotionally detached, unremorseful, and they have a lot of neurocognitive deficits, like their amygdala is like dysfunctional, so they cannot feel a lot of
Yeah, true.
emotions. So yeah, we've covered a lot of topics on why people glorify serial killers.
Yeah.
That's
So
been
if
episode
you
3.
guys who are watching this, if you have interesting points to add or something that leave
Comment down
comments
below.
down below.
Yeah.
If you want to, we'd appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, give this a like. Suggest some topics that we can talk about later.
Yeah.
Subscribe to
Suggest
our
some if you
channel.
have anything. Yeah, and subscribe, please.
Yeah. We're also available on Spotify, so go check us out. Sigmund's Juxtaposition on Spotify, so that you can hear us. You don't have to watch it. You can do your chores and listen to this.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the end of episode 3. So we both will see you in the next episode.
Yes, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Smriti and
Yep.
Janani signing out. Bye bye, guys.
Bye.